last section you learned the 10 principles for success. 6 of those principles include new steps for many people in their decision-making. In practicing these 6 steps, many resource managers have been able to consistently get the results they want, on the land, and in improved profitability and quality of life. The foundation of holistic management is in creating and learning to use a holistic goal, the magnetic north toward which you test your decisions. The holistic goal is the driving force in holistic management, and will guide every significant decision you make. Before you can create a holistic goal, you must first define the whole you are responsible for managing. What does it mean to define the whole I am managing, and why is it an important step in holistic management? Knowing who and what your whole includes helps you determine who makes decisions, who merely influences the decisions made, and it helps put boundaries around what you can, and cannot, manage through your planning and decision-making. Remember, the first principle to understanding holistic decision-making is recognizing that the world operates in wholes. The first key insight that led to the development of the holistic management framework is that a holistic perspective is essential in management. Each of us is responsible for managing a whole, whether it's a farm, a family or a business, or even ourselves as individuals. You need to think about the people who are involved in making decisions, and the people who influence decisions. You need to clarify what resources are available to you, land, equipment, clients, etc., and know what money you have access to. Defining the whole does more than just help you put boundaries around your planning and decision-making. It reminds you of all the various resources available to you which can be utilized in your management decisions. Lastly, this step can make you further aware of the various wholes influencing the whole you are managing and, in turn, how you influence them. The decision makers. The decision makers include the individuals who will create a holistic goal. These are the people who are involved in making day-to-day decisions that affect the whole. They are also the people who have the power to veto or derail any decisions that are made without their input. When making decisions that affect the whole, it is critical to include everyone who is directly involved in or affected by that decision. Leaving out an important decision maker from creating your holistic goal may prevent you from moving forward in the direction you want to go. The key is to have the right people at the table when creating a holistic goal. If everyone is there that should be there, you can build ownership in the holistic goal and improve management of that whole exponentially. Resource base. By determining all the people and assets you influence or that influence you, you have a list you can easily draw from to help you in your management decisions. Defining that list also holds you accountable to those resources and people. Equally important, you will refer to this list when you create your holistic goal. The resource base takes into account the major physical resources from which you generate revenue or that support you in your life or business. This includes land, buildings, equipment, and machinery, and other physical assets that you have to work with. It also includes people, clients and customers, suppliers, neighbors, community members, community organizations, associations, friends, bankers, extension educators, and networks, who, although they do not make your decisions, are vital to you. In some instances you will be unsure whether a person belongs among the decision makers or the resource base. Ask yourself, does this person make day-to-day decisions regarding the management of this farm or ranch? If they do, then you would be wise to include them in the creation of the holistic goal and efforts to build ownership in it. If they are not daily decision makers, but have considerable influence over specific decisions, they belong in the resource base. But, be sure to note their influence, and to remember them when making and testing a decision that will be of concern to them. An example of someone who has influence and even veto power at times, but who does not necessarily belong among the decision makers, would be the loan officer responsible for your line of credit at the bank.
Whether you like it or not, money, and other financial resources, have a direct impact on your ability to create the life you want. It is considered separately in defining the whole, so that you can consider all the sources of money available to you. This could include income, cash on hand, or money in savings accounts, money available from friends and family, investments, line of credit from the bank, etc. It also includes money that could be generated from your resource base. Consider the following examples of defining your whole. A single, employed person, seeking to manage her life holistically, would conclude that there is only one person making decisions, herself. Her resource base includes her home, her job, work associates, her friends, neighbors, and mentors. Actually, any number of people could be regarded as resources for her. For money, she would have what she earns, and has saved, or invested that is easily accessible. A family seeking to manage a farm holistically might say that the decision makers include the members of their immediate family, and their 2 employees. Their resource base includes the land they own, plus the 200 acres they lease, their home, their extended family in town, their customers, their suppliers, the county extension agent, their soil testing laboratory, and their local study group. For money, they have only what they can earn from the farm. The people in an African village seeking to manage the village holistically might say that the decision makers are those who live in the village, as well as extended family members working on nearby farms, mines, or in faraway towns or cities. Their resource base would include the land within the village boundaries, their homes, the school, the clinic, the people with whom they trade goods or services, various government agents like veterinary, agricultural extension, medical, educational, various church groups, and non-governmental organizations. They would have the money they can earn or that extended family members send. A key to defining the whole at this early stage is to not get bogged down into too many details. When you are first getting started, do your best to define your minimum whole. At times it may be difficult determining whether some people are decision makers or belong in your resource base. Don't worry that you won't get it right. Do your best, and if in doubt, be inclusive rather than exclusive with decision makers, as leaving someone out of this category who does make decision leads to problems. You will want to redefine your whole and refine your holistic goal as you go along. What's important is to begin creating and using these valuable components of the framework as soon as possible.
Creating your holistic goal simplifies decision-making by acting as a written guide or reference point to which you can refer when making decisions. Usually it ties what you value, and what you produce, to the environment you manage. Now that you've defined your whole, you've taken a very important step in the direction of managing your resources holistically. It's like having your decision makers, resource base, and money in a big rowboat. You've assembled all the important parts of your whole. If everyone dips their oars in the water and starts rowing, you might end up going in the direction you all want to go. Or, you might end up going in circles because everyone is pulling their oars in opposite directions. Or, worse yet, you'd all end up rowing together, but in a direction you don't want to go. You and the other decision makers in your whole begin to chart the direction you want your lives to go by forming a holistic goal. Ultimately, you will find that the real power of this framework is found in creating and using your holistic goal. Keeping your whole in mind, you and the other decision makers can now begin to create your holistic goal, which should describe the life you want to live, based on what you most deeply value. The 3-part holistic goal asks decision makers to describe the life they want to achieve, what they must produce to create that life, and what needs to be in place to sustain it far into the future. The holistic goal is the magnetic north toward which you will make your decisions. Making decisions can be challenging and complex. Having a written holistic goal gives you a guide toward which you will make and test your decisions, ensuring that you move toward the life you want. The 3 parts of the holistic goal, then, are the quality of life you want to have. The forms of production that will help you produce it. And a description of your future resource base, or what the future must look like to support that quality of life for the future even beyond your time. Each of the 3 parts builds on one another, so it is important to consider each in the order presented. In most instances, you would now begin to describe the quality of life you want to achieve. However, depending on the whole you are managing, and why it was formed, you may need a statement of purpose.
Why do you need a statement of purpose? Well, it clarifies the purpose for which you were formed, so when creating your holistic goal, at least one of the forms of production will specify what you have to produce to ensure that purpose is met. This purpose statement is specifically for the organizations or entities within the organization, such as departments, divisions, units, etc. It answers the question, what were we formed to do? This statement clarifies the purpose for which the organization, department, or unit was formed and records it in writing to ensure that the decision makers don't lose sight of it when they are creating their holistic goal. Later, this can be part of your mission statement for your business plan. It ensures that the holistic goal speaks to the reason for the entity's existence and can sometimes be used to initially determine what is and isn't in keeping with that designated purpose, saving time and money down the road. For example, Farm Cooperative may describe its purpose this way: we serve our members by providing business services, access to markets, and research information that enhances their success. What's important in stating your purpose is to get to the heart of the matter and say, in reasonably few words, what the entity was formed to do. The statement of purpose will be reflected in the holistic goal. At least one, if not more, of the forms of production will correspond to what must be produced in order to ensure that the purpose is met.
Now let's look at creating your quality of life statement. The quality of life statement of the holistic goal begins with answering a simple question. How do you want your life to be? Remember, you are talking about what you want your life to be like, living or working in the whole that you have just defined. As you answer this question, you determine what you value in life, what gives your life meaning, what makes it fulfilling. If your whole includes more than just you as a decision maker, then the quality of life statement becomes an expression of the desires and hopes of all decision makers, a reflection of your shared desires. Quality of life statements are usually written in the present tense. They represent things you want in your life now, rather than wishful future-oriented goals. They might begin with words like, we have, we are, we do, rather than, we will have, we hope, we will do, etc. And they describe only what you want, not how you're going to get it. The quality of life statement of your holistic goal expresses what you value, what you're doing, what you're about, and what you want to ultimately be. It is a reflection of what motivates you. Describing it should excite you. It speaks to needs you want to satisfy now, but also speaks to longer-term objectives. It is your collective sense of what's important and why. Some examples of simple quality of life statements are: we want meaningful relationships with friends and family. We want strong, healthy bodies. We want to be financially secure and provide for our family's needs. Lastly, we want to have good communications. Some statements are simple, others more elaborate. What matters is that they represent what is most important to you, and that all decision makers in the whole see their words reflected in the end product. It will be important to discuss what certain statements mean and to be sure that there is a collective understanding of what they mean to all the decision makers. For example, what does it mean to be financially secure? Are we all in agreement on this? Obviously, this process will take time, but it will be time well spent and it will ultimately save time when making decisions in the future. It's also important to remember that even when the quality of life statements are refined to where you want them, you still have 2 more parts to create before your holistic goal is complete, and even then what you create will at first be considered a temporary holistic goal. The reason for this is that your holistic goal is a living, dynamic, and practical document that grows as you grow and changes as both you and the whole you are managing change.
Now, let's identify what you must produce to have the life you want. Building on the quality of life statements are the forms of production, where we ask, what must I commit to in order to have the life I want? Generally speaking, for each quality of life statement, there must be a form of production that addresses what needs to be produced. Writing the forms of production is the part of the holistic goal in which people are tempted to include specifics, the how-tos of creating that fulfilling life. You will eventually get to the how-tos when you begin testing your decisions. For now, leave the details for later. One form of production might address 2 or 3 statements. Another way to ask the question is this: what is it we're not doing now, or what is blocking us from having the quality of life we described? If, for example, your family wants to have better balance between work and home, you might ask yourselves, what are we not doing to create that balance? What's keeping us from spending more time together and less time working? You sigh and shake your head and say out loud, if we only had more time, we could do that. You've just identified a form of production, better time management for those healthy bodies or that good communication you desire.
Ask yourself, how must your resource base be many years from now if it is to sustain what you have to produce to create the quality of life you want to achieve? Look back at the resource base you described when you were defining your whole earlier in this Holistic Management online course. This third part of the holistic goal asks you to think about how that resource base must look in the future. It is called, for lack of a better term, the future resource base description. In looking at the future resource base, there are 3 primary elements to describe. 1. How you have to behave. A description of how you must behave if the people in your resource base, customers or clients, the people in the community, etc., are to continue to support you. If you want people to perceive you as honest, ethical, creative, etc., then you need to behave that way now. 2. Describe or draw out your vision of the future landscape. A description of how you see the land in your resource base 100 years from now. If you want the land to appear as you describe it, then you have to make decisions today that lead you in that direction.
Even when you aren't managing land, it's important to describe the landscape surrounding your home or community as it must be in the future. The long-term well-being of any individual, family, or community depends on the health and productivity of the land around them. 3. Descript how you see the future community. A description of your community as it must be to sustain your forms of production well into the future. That description can also include the services that must be available in the future, such as schools, medical facilities, stable businesses, etc., if what you produce depends on them. If you are managing land, you would also describe the ecosystem processes on your land, as they would have to be functioning in a healthy state to sustain what you are producing for generations to come. A sample statement might be: we will have effective water and mineral cycles, high energy flow, and rich biodiversity on the land we manage. The future resource-based description connects the short and medium-term considerations of your holistic goal with the long-term future aspects. All three elements, written in the correct order: quality of life statement, forms of production, and future resource-based description, will provide you in the whole you've defined with the foundation and direction toward which you can begin making decisions and managing holistically.
We've just finished going over how to develop your holistic goal. Start off by looking at your values, check out your resources, put them all against what you want to have as a quality of life. Then you need to figure out how to produce that quality of life and how to sustain it into the future. Appreciate you joining me today. The next session is going to talk about how do you test all these decisions that you have made in development of your holistic goal.